Alright, so I finally got that back screw out. Took me maybe 4 or 5 minutes of fiddling with that crescent wrench, but it did work. So thankfully I can come back to the front one. Again, in the earlier clip I showed I had already removed this because I wanted to see how tight these were in there. But I put it back in just to hold everything into place while I was taking the back motor out. You can see that comes out easily. Hopefully you can see this on camera. I kind of wedged my camera on my front seat, but this will drop straight down now, like that. And you can see that's the shaft that should turn when you want to adjust the hot or cold air. So now that we got this out, let me clean this off a little bit. It's kind of nasty, and we'll move along. Okay, now that we've got the actuator out of the way, you can see this plastic shaft that goes up into the plenum box. We need to try to remove that plastic piece right there. I'm going to gently grasp it with some channel locks. Hopefully I can film this. There we go. And as is usually the case, I believe there's a crack. So what happens is this piece, you see that crack? That piece cracks, and then that shaft right there is able to turn independent of this. So instead of this rotating with it, this stays stationary, and this spins. Sorry, I misspoke. The motor is going to actuate this. This will spin independent of that shaft up there, and so this won't actually do anything to the blend door. So the kit from Heater Treater comes with a metal piece to replace this plastic so it doesn't break, and that looks like this. So this piece with the flat edges will slip down into the actuator like that, and that will slip over the shaft going up into the plenum box. So let me figure out what my next step is going to be here to reassemble everything, and I'll be right back. Alright, so after reading the instructions more thoroughly, I realized that I need to check the indexing of the motor on the actuator to make sure that it's calibrated with the dial on the dash, so that once I put everything back together and I turn the dial to hot air, it'll actually divert the air over the heater core and produce hot air, and conversely, if I turn it to cold, it should divert air to the AC coil and produce cold air from the ducting. So to do that, we need to open up the case. If you look, there's going to be 4 little wings that hook and connect the cover to the housing, one on each side, like that. And I'm just going to gently lift underneath them with my fingernails, hopefully, and I'm going to do my best to avoid breaking them. Hopefully this plastic's not super brittle, but just gently pry on those, lift the cover off, and we should see what looks like that. You got a series of gears inside, and it looks like there's an index dot that we need to align properly so that the blend door will be calibrated properly. So let me open this up and we'll see if mine matches the picture that came with my instructions. I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got the cover removed and we can see the gears in here, and this should look just like this photo here, and it does. We've got it oriented in the correct way, and so the instructions say that we need to find the index dot, which is actually going to be located on the lower white gear. You can see down there in the bottom of the case. So we're supposed to lift up on this gear carefully. I'm just going to set it in the lid, and we need to find the index knob, which looks like it's right there. See how that little piece of plastic protrudes up? So that's the index mark. So we're supposed to use the black gear to rotate this around. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. You see it? It's right there. And we need to get it so it's just at the edge of the black gear, according to the photo there. So it looks like we're good. So I think I'm ready to put this back together. But they actually sent, I think I showed earlier, they sent with the kit this little nifty wire harness that you can snap onto a 9-volt battery, and you can actually use this to test the motor before you put everything back together, just to make sure that your motor actually works. Be a shame to put this back in the truck and realize, oh yeah, my motor was broken too. So I am going to get a 9-volt battery set up, and we'll see if we can't test this before we put it back in the truck. Alright, so I've got my battery snapped onto the harness they sent, and I've got one of the leads attached to the battery terminal right there. I'm just going to touch the other one to the other terminal like that, and look at that, you can see the motor turn. Sweet. So my motor's good. I have to say, that's kind of a nifty little idea. That's a nice addition to the kit so that you can test your motor while you've got it out. So again, we're ready to put this back together. Once again, you just want to make sure that that white plastic gear is indexed right there where the protrusion aligns with the edge of the darker gear. Now we can put the other white gear back on like that, and we can put our cover back on. Make sure it's oriented correctly. I'm going to need 2 hands to snap it on, and then we can go ahead and put everything back in the truck. It should be pretty easy to get back in. I'll see if I can't use that screw with the machine threads on the end that came with the kit to make it a little bit easier in case I ever have to pull this out again. Let me get in position, and we'll see if I can get this finagled into place. Alright, so I decided before I put the housing back in, I'm going to reinstall this screw that came with the kit. Again, it looks like this. Hopefully you can see that okay. It's got coarse threads on one end that'll go up, and then it's got machine threads on the other end that'll aim down. It's going to go in like this, and so we can put some hex nuts on the end and hopefully use a socket set to get the hex nuts out later. See, the housing can just drop straight off the shaft. There's no head on the end holding it in place. So I'm going to try to reinstall this in the hole, the mounting post first. See if I can get it started by hand, and then I'm probably going to have to put those 2 hex nuts on the end. You know what, it would make more sense for me to do that first. If I run the 2 hex nuts on the end tight to each other, I can use a socket to drive this up. So let me get that in position, and I'll do that next. Alright, so I've got the 2 hex nuts that came with the kit run onto the end of the machine thread end of the screw. Hopefully you can see that. So now that I've done that, I can use a socket to hopefully get this started, and then I hope I can get the I don't know if it's gonna work. I think the socket's too tall. I wonder if I can do it by hand like that. That looks like it'll work. And then maybe I can use my crescent wrench that I used earlier. Like that. Hopefully you can see this. And that's the general idea. I'm not going to make you sit through that, but let me get that run in, and then we'll put the housing back in. Alright, so I finally got that replacement screw run all the way in. I ended up using an open-ended wrench like this. This is a 9mm. I think the correct size is actually 11/32. I didn't have an 11/32 open-end wrench. So now I'm ready to see if I can back the lower screw off. There we go. So I can get, sorry, the lower nut off. I said screw. You want to get the nuts to spin independent of each other. Like that. You can remove them. See if I can get this one loose without spinning the whole screw. Can't tell if the screw's spinning or not. Hopefully not. Sorry, I know this is tedious and not a great camera angle. Shoot. Alright, well, you get the idea. I'm going to get that one removed. Alright, so you can see the replacement screw in place. I got both of the hex nuts off, and we're ready to put the actuator back in place. But first, we need to install our new shaft coupling that comes with the kit. You can see how this is the piece that connects to that shaft there in the plenum box. You can see how it's sort of flattened on one side, and that corresponds to the flat side up there. So we need to put this on. It feels kind of snug, but if yours is trying to fall off and won't stay on there because of gravity, you could probably put some like dielectric grease or Vaseline or something up inside where it connects, and that might be sticky enough to hold it in place so you can get the rest of everything put on here. But now I read that you need to, in the instructions, you need to manipulate the blend door so that when you put the housing back in, you're not twisting the gears inside, because remember earlier we indexed the gears. So we want, see how this portion has two flat sides? We want to make sure that when we align it with the screws and the alignment stud here, that it slips right on to here. So those flat sides there need to be parallel with how this is oriented. You don't want to twist this, you want to twist that so that everything lines up. I think I've already pretty much lined it up the way it needs to be. And I'll see if I can finagle this into place. It's blurry, sorry. You can see the new screw we put on the back there. We just slipped it on. Now we need to get there, right there. Once you slip it over this alignment stud here, you're good. So I'm gonna do it in reverse this time. I'm gonna put the front screw in here and put that in first, and then show you what I'm gonna do with the back. Let me get in position here. It's tight quarters here, and I'll be right back.